So I grew up in Oakland, just me, my parents, my sister, my cousins. I would always watch like science and nature documentaries on TV. That was the only thing that was on. We didn't have cable, so, but then there was like, of course, Bill Nye, right? That's the OG science show that all the young science nerds that we watched back then. I didn't really know what to do, to be honest. I did end up going to college right away because I had no plan, no idea. I didn't really care really. So I stopped going to school after a year. I started beauty school at Laney, worked at the warehouse all through beauty school. Completed that, got my cosmetology license, and I was at the salon like 9 years. I knew that when I started at Cal State East Bay, I was going to become a full-time student. And to be honest, I was nervous about being in this field as like an older student, a non-traditional student. I kind of always knew that to be a theme of research and like a scientific method, that failure is not necessarily a bad result, it's just a result. So I was like, okay. I always thought that was really cool because like you said, it's always seen as a bad thing. But sometimes, to be honest, when I don't have a lot of confidence, I just like kind of like go back to like the warehouse. Like, you know what? I was 19 years old. I just failed all my classes at SF State, and I was like, I'm gonna drive the forklift. And I was just the youngest person in the warehouse, the only female equipment operator. And I was like, you know what, if I could do that. So I applied to this RU, this summer internship. I got it and I was like in such disbelief. The school we were at was like a pretty good school in France, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna be working with these like international researchers. I was really nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, all these other students coming from these really big schools, right? It was 8 students from around the country. And I was like, well, I'm coming from Cal State East Bay. When I would tell people what school I came from, no one else knew the school. Like everyone else knew each other's school. And I was the only Californian. I was like, yeah, I go to Cal State East Bay. No one knew the school. So I was really like nervous about my knowledge too. I was like, well, they come from these bigger, more well-known institutions. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hang with them. I was, and like we got to the point where like sometimes we would be discussing topics and like talking about each individual research project that we're on, and like a couple of times like people would like refer to me for questions and like ask me like, oh, you know, is that correct? And I'd be like, yeah. So getting my degree was always something that I wanted, and I was just like, I wondered if I could. I think I could. I always wanted to, but why don't I try to go and find out? If it doesn't work out for some reason, then at least I tried. But I knew that's why I came back.